Thanks to Swedish Comica for becoming a channel member. Well, a busy week of Premier League action concludes this weekend with a full fixture list for Matchday 23. We are going to look ahead to all of the games, give our predictions, and of course, put a bit of a focus on Newcastle versus Luton Town. Hopefully you're looking forward to that, as those two sides come into this one in pretty good form after midweek. But in addition to my preview and predictions, as always, I'll be encouraging you to get involved down in the comments. And if you beat or match my score, you'll get a shout out in the next recap, as Premier League football will return again next weekend. But for now, before we get to the full matchday predictions and review, let's have a look ahead to Newcastle United versus Luton Town. Two sides that were very similar in their style of attacking midweek, but very different in the method without the ball. Luton Town, of course, produced, well, I was going to say the performance of a season, but certainly in my lifetime, probably the performance of a lifetime. In a 4-0 win at home to Brighton and Hove Albion, a stunning first half performance, an exquisite centre-forward performance, and obviously G'd up by the return of the captain to the pitch pre-match and a new international signing at half-time, the only senior one of the window in the end. For Newcastle, it was a 3-1 win away at Aston Villa for their first league defeat in God knows how long at Villa Park. And Newcastle, despite a poor away record, as we saw earlier in the season at Kenilworth Road, bounced back with a wonderful win to end a run of 4 without. So looking good for both teams coming into this one, and a very similar story in a number of ways, because both sides have key players coming back from injury. For Luton, we saw the importance of Reece Burke after about, 6 or 7 seconds in midweek, winning the ball back, nabbing it in a high area, and allowing us to go on and score our very early first. In addition to that, it has been confirmed today that Kabore is back from AFCON, as well as the returns of Brown, of Mengi, and our new signing Hashioka being available, make for a real strong Luton squad, and probably the most players we've had available at senior level this season. For Newcastle, of course, it's been a season dogged by injuries, the extra fixtures catching up with a lot, and key players missing significant periods. And while there is a doubt in attacking areas over certain strikers, defensively, Newcastle have got an almost full complement back, just the goalkeeper missing out at the minute. So it does promise to be a pretty interesting game, and who would have thought Luton would be going into this one looking to complete a league double? But we've got to look at that performance on Tuesday night first and foremost, because I mentioned the similarities to Newcastle's win in midweek, and that was in the form of incredible counter-attacking play, getting the ball quickly to wide areas and letting star players and dynamic players on the counter cause a real threat to the opposition defence. Now, for Luton, we saw in 3 minutes that dreamland was possible, and probably for the first time and maybe only time this season, we had a really comfortable night. It was the first game in 3 or 4 where we didn't dominate possession, but we certainly dominated the chances and the game. As soon as Brighton had it at the back, Luton picked the perfect moments to press and pressed as a complete unit, with the centre-halves going all the way in as well. We saw for the first goal the effect that can have. And overall, we've got to talk about Elijah Adebayo as well, because early in the season there was a bit of criticism about him. And of course, like many, he took a while to adapt to Premier League level. But that performance is up there with the very best I've ever seen from a Luton player. So I think a lot of Luton fans enjoyed that one, as did Adebayo, who certainly deserved the moment. We are building partnerships all over the pitch, and it's an awful decision for Rob Edwards to make this weekend as to who to play. But to have so many senior options available, to have that euphoria of having the skipper back in and around the place and the training ground. I know many fans will have noticed John Still was in the building earlier this week as well. No surprise that the big win followed that one. And of course, Hashioka coming on at half-time. It's a rapturous ovation, a great signing both in terms of player and commercial value for the football club. So all looking good at Luton Town, and I know there was still a few little murmurings about the end of the window, but overall I think it's a brilliant one. The biggest threat to Luton's survival chances was losing key players, of which we lost none. And of course, while Ryan Giles didn't quite work out, we've brought in another wing-back of real quality straight away. So overall, we're stronger than we started it. And we've got lots of players returning from injury. It's all very good. Newcastle restricted in the window for slightly different reasons, of course. Financial fair play close for them. A bit of an issue that's a hangover from the previous period, because while they've obviously not spent silly money compared to other clubs in the division, certainly trying to compete at that top end, the problem from the Mike Ashley era to an extent was there weren't many players of extreme value, which means you're not going to have a huge amount to sell on. So You look at the example of, say, Chelsea in the summer, who can flog 5, 6, 7 to Saudi for 30, 40 million. Newcastle don't really have that luxury with non-key players, and that's because that squad depth just wasn't there before. So getting key players back from injury, big for them. And it was a really good performance at Villa, albeit a 3-1, and then that narrow offside goal just after. There was a little bit of a wobble at the back, and there's no doubt that Dubravka, while a good goalkeeper, is not quite bringing the sureness to the defence that, say, a Nick Pope would. But overall, you see the improvement in Newcastle. And I'm really interested as a result of it as to what's going to happen tactically at the weekend, because we saw where a huge amount of Luton's threat comes on the counter-attack, and it is via Chio Ogbene and his pace on the right wing. Not to mention the fact he's got the quality on the end of it as well, as we saw from the cross for the first and the finish for the second, nicking in ahead of Steele and being composed in front of goal. But what happens at left back for Newcastle? Because Dan Burn is a man who I would fancy him against if it goes over the top, to be fair. But Burn obviously adds a huge aerial threat for Newcastle going forward and gives them value from set pieces, as well as being a very good defender. So I wonder if maybe Eddie Howe thinks about a back three with Livramento coming in at left wing back. Does Livramento just come in for this game? And what happens up front? Because of course there's a doubt about Isaac, but it looks like he might be able to play. There's selection dilemmas for Luton as well, with Jacob Brown back, who Rob Edwards has generally gone for away from home. Does he think about bringing him back in for Morris, who had a brilliant game also midweek under the radar? Because Morris against Trippier on that side could be an interesting battle too. There are so many little tactical decisions that I think will shape how this game goes. But I do worry for the first time this season, and I didn't think it's something I would ever say in the Premier League, is that because Luton have improved so much and because of the nature of the winning midweek, there's people now talking about that's why we're going to survive, we're going to be all right. And is it just going to be one of those days where maybe at the end of an emphatic, elating week, that it maybe just crashes down to earth a little bit? Because I know that might be the pessimist in me, don't worry, but we saw one against Brentford similarly, didn't we, where we'd had a couple of good performances. It wasn't long after the Liverpool game and such, and then we just had a poor performance in there. So I do worry if the end of the week, maybe it's going to be a tougher game. But of course, Newcastle away, one of the toughest games in the Premier League. I know they had the outlier against Forest, but generally at home they've been brilliant this season. And even though they lost the City game, they were moments away from a point. And prior to that, they were basically faultless at home. There's so many things that leave me not sure. And of course, Luton had the added luxury of resting people like Adebayo and Barkley for 20 minutes in midweek, which they wouldn't normally be able to do. Just don't know about this one, I've got to be honest. There's part of me that thinks, yes, we can keep the momentum going. But ultimately, and I'll say this again, I would sacrifice a defeat at the weekend to beat Sheffield United next week, because that is the bread and butter for Luton Town. We've got 6 bottom half teams at home between now and the end of the year. And ultimately, if we win those 6 games, we'll be safe. If we win 5 of them, we'll probably be safe. So that's where Luton have got to pick up the points. For me, I'm going to go for Newcastle just to edge this one. I really don't know what to expect, and I do feel it will be genuinely decided by tactical decisions by the manager, who goes where. I think Eddie Howe is cute enough to probably put someone a bit quicker like Livramento on the left. And I think ultimately Newcastle may just have too much. And at home, there's no shame in that because they've beaten most teams there this year. So based on that, I'm going to go for Newcastle to win. And on this occasion, because they've got towering defenders as well, I'm going to go for 2-0. I don't think it'll be very comfortable, but I do think Newcastle will just have the extra quality, which at full strength, there's no shame in. We would expect that. Don't get too downhearted though, Luton fans. I went for Brighton to win 2-1 in midweek, didn't I? While we're talking about that, let's go and move on to matchday 23. And before we do that, we need to have a recap of what happened in matchday 22, where it was a very slow start for me on Tuesday night. Just a 1 point for the Palace win after getting the Luton game emphatically wrong. My gamble on Forest Arsenal not quite paying off. And of course, 1 goal settling some of the others. And Newcastle surprising the odds with their away form. But from Wednesday night onwards, we were phenomenal. We got everything spot on in terms of outcome. And we also got a perfect score as well. So 4 correct outcomes across Wednesday and Thursday night. But the big 3 points for Liverpool-Chelsea, as we correctly predicted a 4-1 win there. Albeit, Chelsea might have had a penalty or 2 during that game. In total, that gave me 8 points for matchday 22, and just 3 of you in the comments managed to beat my score. Again, I'm on the trusty post-it note like yesterday. So Chris, one of the regulars, matchday winner in the championship in yesterday's predictions, but got 9 points here to finish in third place. One perfect score for you as well. Kurt's up in second, but we're moving into double figures. 11 points for you, including 3 perfect scores. A stunning effort there to finish in second place, but just pipped to the post on 12 points by Reece Williams, who again got 3 perfect scores, but 1 more correct outcome as well. So 12 points for you, the match day winner, and 3 of you, well done for beating me. But let's see if you can do the same in match day 23. Get your predictions in the comments below. This is what I've gone for this weekend's action. We start on Saturday lunchtime with Everton v Spurs. Going to go 2-1 for the visitors, who had a few scares defensively in midweek, but overall deserve to win it after the break. Brighton v Palace. I've seen so many saying Brighton are going to win this, but Brighton Palace, we discussed this in a reverse fixture. It's almost always 1-1, and while Brighton might provide a response, you have to go for the safe scoreline there. I've also gone for the same score for Burnley v Fulham. Fulham have struggled for goals again recently. Will Broja make the difference? Burnley, of course, got one of their best results of the season at Fulham, and we'll be looking to back that up again. You know that I've gone for Newcastle to beat Luton 2-0. Hopefully, I'm as wrong as I was on Tuesday night, and we produced the best performance I've ever seen again. Sheffield United Villa. If Chris Wilder can take his mind off sandwiches for a minute, they might be able to set up a game plan. And Villa haven't been the best on the road. But again, will we get a response from Emery's team? I'm going to go for Villa to win it by 3-1. Not that they've looked as good in recent weeks. Bournemouth v Forest, I've gone for a comfortable home win. The honeymoon seems to be over a bit for Nuno. They were disciplined against Arsenal, but didn't offer a huge amount going forward. And while they have just got to get through this period until the majority are back from AFCON next week, for now, I'm going to go for Bournemouth to win. They look good again away at West Ham. Chelsea v Wolves, I'm doing the same as I did for the Fulham game a couple of weeks ago. Going for an ugly 1-0 home win for Chelsea. Wolves unfortunate not to get a point against United. And Chelsea, well, back all over the shop defensively against Liverpool. United West Ham was the toughest one for me. I did originally put 2-1 to West Ham, I'll admit that. And I do think on the break they're going to be a real threat to United. Everyone started talking again about United being fixed and Mainu being generational talents and all of that. Let's just calm down, because last time this happened, they ended up then losing to Forest, didn't they, the game after. So I've gone for United 2-1 reluctantly, but I do feel that's going to be a very close game and could swing either way. Arsenal-Liverpool, I've gone for 2 goals apiece on Super Sunday, mainly because that's how the cup tie went. Arsenal were brilliant in the first half, didn't take their chances. Liverpool showed their goal threat on the break. So this time, I'll go for both teams to take their chances and serve up a Premier League classic for us. And then on Monday night, Brentford v City. Look, Brentford was so poor defensively against Spurs. They've got a threat on the counter now with Tony. Morpay, yes, we know what type of player he is, but he is a threat as well. He does all the ugly running. But at the back, they've just not got enough. I've never been convinced by the goalkeeper since he replaced Raya. And I don't think they've got a strong enough defence physically or technically to keep up with City. So with them coming back into form, with Haaland back off the bench last time, De Bruyne building fitness, I'm going for a comfortable City win, but the same score they got in midweek, 3-1 away from home. So those are my predictions for match day 23, but do you agree or disagree with them? Let me know in the comments below and get your predictions in for match day 23. Let me know what you think the scores will be, and if you beat or match my score, you'll get a shout out in next week's recap. I hope you have a good weekend following your team, and if you want to see our championship predictions as well, they're up in the eye above from yesterday for this weekend's action. For now though, if you enjoyed this one, please do put a thumbs up on the video. Hopefully we see as good a performance from Luton on Saturday. To stay up to date with everything across the channel, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. Thank you very much for watching though, your support is massively appreciated. And we'll see you back here next time for match day 24.